What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? And welcome to another exciting episode of Evening Alpha. I'm your host, Todd. How you guys doing? How's everybody doing tonight? I love Evening Alpha. I love these evenings we spend together with the entire web3 community. And tonight we have some phenomenal guests. I cannot wait to introduce them to you. In the meantime, before we jump in, I do want to say we have a lot of things coming up in the world of adult fantasy. We have I'm very actually excited to announce we have the Origin comic drop coming out in 2 weeks. I'm not going to give you a specific date. You have to stay tuned for that. You got to hop into Discord for that. But this is the Origin comic, the history of D Void. If you've been in the adult fantasy community long enough, you know that a few months ago we dropped the Ashcan edition, the mini comic with our patented de-aging and grading technology. We did a static grade on this beautiful digital comic, and you will be able to burn that comic and receive an Origin comic of this character. And just to remind everybody that hasn't been in our community that long, everything we do is actually created by the community. So the story came out from our writer's room. The idea for it came out from the writer's room. The pitch came out from the writer's room. A lot of the stuff that happens in the comic actually came out from the voting side. So this is a 100% purely community-driven creation. And so we want to thank you guys for participating, and we cannot wait to get this in your hot little hands. It's badass. It's really, really cool. And we have some special things also in store for that launch. Some brand new things. You know, we can't just sit still, but I'm not going to tell you about that right now. Anyway, stay tuned to the Discord and to Twitter, and we will let you know all about that. Adult Fantasy NFT. Don't just go to @Adult Fantasy. I don't know what's there. You know, it's probably smut. So just don't do it. Adult Fantasy NFT is the Twitter handle, and you can pop over to adultfantasy.io, and that's where you can find all the goodness and all the cool links, all the stuff that'll keep you safe and warm and cozy. And with that, I am super excited tonight to introduce two people from a phenomenal project. I'm very excited to have them in our universe and to introduce them to you guys. I'd love to introduce Leo and Mike from Decentralized Pictures. How you guys doing?
Good to be here. Thanks for having us, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. So first question, only question, what the heck is Decentralized Pictures, guys?
Good question. Good question. You want me to jump in, Leo? You want to take this one?
I'll go first, and then I'll fill in the blanks, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah. So what Decentralized Pictures is, we use blockchain technology to incentivize large amounts of opinion data from our community, and our communities, anyone and everyone who wants to sign up and and is interested in film, filmmakers, film lovers, film fans, and we use our token to incentivize opinions from our community to help make the decisions about which projects we finance and support from our film fund and our network of film industry partners. And that's a network that Leo and our co-founder Roman Coppola and our team have worked at building over the last few years. Just to give a little bit of background, Decentralized Pictures is an outgrowth really of American Zoetrope, which is the film company that Francis Coppola and George Lucas founded in 1969. And like American Zoetrope, Decentralized Pictures is about finding great filmmaking talent and content and supporting it with all of its resources. And it is founded on the shoulders of American Zoetrope. So we at the company, I'm head of production at American Zoetrope, and we have 40, 50 years of relationships in the film industry at studios, agencies, production companies. And we have taken all of those resources and made those available to the filmmakers who our community says they really love and want their films to get made. So just really, really simply, the way it works is we'll post an award, let's say $50,000 or $100,000 for finishing funds or for financing for a film. Filmmakers who have projects that fit with the call for submissions submit their projects. I think they can do pitch videos, a pitch. They can present their project any way they want to, and they're pitching it to the community. And in order to do that, they have to pay a submission fee in our film credits, our crypto graphic token. those film credits get locked into a smart contract that pay out other members of the community for reading and reviewing and rating those projects. So it's in a peer-to-peer fashion. Filmmakers are incentivizing other members of the community to give their opinion about the project. And then with all of that data that we gather about how the community is responding to all of the submissions, we use that data to make the decisions about what to back. And then once a filmmaker is selected, DCP's mission is to back that filmmaker, provide that financing and that other support. DCP doesn't take any IP ownership over the project. We're just here to, DCP is making an investment in the film. So we want to see that filmmaker and their vision succeed. So DCP gets behind the project. And yeah, that's
I'll
DCP.
Just throw a couple more little tidbits of alpha in there. We are a 501c3, Decentralized Pictures, or as we're saying, DCP is for short, because it's a lot to say over and over. And it's important to note there have been other public submission portals for people to, submit their work and hopefully get it swooped up by a web2 company or whatnot. I know Amazon did that with their studio portal, but there was a problem, and we talked to them about this. It was, the drinking from a fire hose problem, as we call it, where you get so much inflow. How do you filter through it all? You need a huge development department, and there's just not enough resources to review that much material. So the way we're trying to solve that problem is by outsourcing the review to the world. So you tell us which project of the ones that have been submitted you want to see, and then essentially you are being paid for doing that in a peer-to-peer fashion from submitter to reviewer. You're paid to give that peer review, which gives the insights into mitigating the risk from our fund, right? Like, part of the reason studios and production companies lean towards not picking up original content and going with known IP is just simply because of the risk mitigation, right? There's some guy at the top of the studio whose head's on the chopping block if they don't make their quota. And so how do they do that? Oh, well, let's go with the most risk averse option, and that tends to be remakes and IP that has a following already. So our strategy to mitigate that risk for new content and content from demographics that haven't had enough of a voice is to get it pre-money, and peer review that content and pay the reviewers to give their opinions about what they want to see. The last thing I'll say is we are a 501c3, not public charity, nonprofit, but we do enter into financing agreements with the filmmakers. So we stand to recoup and we stand to share in profit. However, Decentralized Pictures is a non-stock corporation. There's no equity ownership in it. And our mission, according to our IRS filing, is to support artists from communities and from the independent film world. So all of revenue, whether it's recoupment or any share of profit, goes back into the film fund for future artists. So we're trying to create this evergreen fund that is available to anyone in the world that can prove that that the world actually wants to see their film made.
I love this. I think something that I'm very curious about that you guys touched on a little bit is that in the Web3 space, 99% of the companies or / projects that are in it are brand new, right? They don't necessarily have an established background. Either they don't have an established background personally, or even if they do have an established background personally, the company that they've founded is recent in order to address the opportunity in Web3. And so I think it says something really special when an established company or an established brand comes in and says, yeah, we're actually going to change, like, you're modifying a business model, which I think is extremely ballsy. And I'm curious at that decision-making process, because it's I think when you have an established company, especially one that's lasted decades, it's sort of like this giant ship that's been going this direction and one direction for an extended period of time. and to all of a sudden to try to turn it, it's oftentimes it's not simple, right? I can imagine the discussions and the debates and the just the education that's needed to do that. So I'm really curious about how that went, and what was how were you able to get everybody, all the stakeholders, whatever, like how were you able to get everybody on board on this thing?
Well,
yeah, sorry.
No, go for it, Mike.
Well, as a head of production in American Zoetrope, I think from the institutional side of things, I'll start off. The idea was original. So I think the way I would answer that is to say that it really is sort of a confluence of a lot of just the right factors to make this idea be well received and have the opportunity for it to be, implemented and carried further. So, before Leo, and I started working on DCP, Leo was a producer at Roman Coppola's commercial production company, and those two companies shared the same office space. And Leo has been an early adopter of blockchain and crypto, and the original, very original kernel of an idea. And it's evolved somewhat, but the original idea was Leo's, and he brought it to me, and then we started building it, and then we brought it to Roman. But the environment was really ripe for that, because what Roman has always been about is putting all the people on all the companies that he has, working together to cross-pollinate ideas and really cultivate them and nurture them and make them grow. And he kind of, in a way, he has his commercial production company, which is a business, and American Zoetrope is a film business, and he has other sort of things, but really it's all one big skunk works that is just looking for great ideas. And Roman and the Coppolas have always been about looking for new technology in filmmaking. And Francis, his family has really been a pioneer in so many different areas, so many different technological aspects of filmmaking. From Roman's great-grandfather built the Vitaphone that synced sound, and then Francis was a pioneer in using the flatbed editing machine. And
the very first film was the sound of
the jazz singer.
The jazz singer, yeah.
He built the Vitaphone for right, and then Francis was one of the first filmmakers to use a video monitor, video village, and video playback on set, and just all of these things. They've just always been very open to new, completely fresh, out of left field ideas. And then you combine that with an intimate understanding of the film industry and how the film industry works, and where are those very precise things that can be fixed and can be addressed. And that helped us to really find the right use case for blockchain to apply to the film industry. Anyway, so the point is that all of these things just kind of came together perfectly. I don't know if it could have happened. I don't know what it's like at other places, and if the environment is such that there's a willingness for new ideas and new sort of evolution. But it was just the right breeding ground. And Leo and I worked on this for a few months, just putting together the idea and a business plan. And then we brought it to Roman, and he was like, wow, go, great, go for it. I mean, and the other thing too is, American Zoetrope has always been about, as I said before, supporting, new and independent filmmakers, taking a risk on new talent, and also about a community of creatives. Actually, Francis had founded a website at zoetrope.com in the late 90s, where the idea is you come in and you give some creative, contribution to the community, and then you get something in return, and then it all sort of builds. The idea is that if you're a writer and you want to get peer review from the community, you've got to review 5 other submissions from other writers. And then once you do that, you earn up enough of a kind of balance to then submit your stuff, get some notes, and you can be a part of this collaborative community. So all of those pieces were there, and it was sort of like right place, right time. That's kind of how I would describe it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would just say, to touch on and add to what Mike said, him and George, my understanding is they started Zoetrope in San Francisco because they wanted to sort of take a step away from the typical, thinking that was happening in Hollywood at the time. I mean, they both went to film school in LA. Francis went to UCLA and George went to USC. And there was almost this rivalry between them with their short films and whatnot. And my understanding is that they're like, we need this creative driven production company, not this formulaic decision-making driven production studios that existed. And so that same ethos has continued with American Zoetrope till today. But I'll just say that there was sort of a little tidbit of history that happened prior to Mike and I pitching this idea. And it was Roman and I started this Bitcoin mining operation back in 2012 or 2013 in one of his sound stages in Burbank. And we had this annex area next to which we used for casting next door. And we knew that we were having to move out of it. So there was like a few months left on the lease and we weren't going to be using it anymore. So we just like set up this operation in there. And it, it didn't do very well at the time. We were kind of breaking even and, but we were still mining quite a few Bitcoins. And we ended up paying the electricity and whatnot with cash or fiat. And then I think it was 2016 when I came up with it. After Ethereum had come out and smart contracts were real. We started conceiving ways of how to bring this tech to the film world. And so it was several years later, and those Bitcoins were now, quite valuable.
Yeah.
So he had a little small taste of Bitcoin or of crypto that had done him well. So it was like, more crypto stuff. Sure. Let's go for it. Let's do it.
That's awesome. That's actually kind of a little similar. So I have a similar story with NFTs. I was in in New York and I was at a meetup, deep tech dev meetup. And they were talking about this brand new tech. This was, I want to say it was 2013. But they were really deep tech. They were talking about this brand new technology that they had where they could actually tie any image to a smart contract, right? I don't even think it was called a smart contract. They were talking about the hash rate and all this kind of stuff, but basically making any image unique and identifiable on a permanent and immutable basis.
Uh-huh.
And I had an art startup at the time, and I just remember thinking man, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. But it was so high level, you know what I mean? So deep for me. I was like, okay, well, I kind of locked that up and stored that away and kind of went on with my own stuff. And then coming back in 2020, and seeing, I was just blown away. All of a sudden, it was a massive industry, and I'm like, oh my God, I've missed it, So just had to jump in. It's really, I think it's fascinating how it's been out. All this stuff has been out for long enough where it's maybe touched people in subtle ways. Like either you tried it and you moved on, or you remembered it, or a friend, my nephew made a couple grand off it or whatever. And it really starts to, I think it builds that way,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, people, the web has been hashing images for, I feel like decades. I'm not sure, but the technology of taking a digital file and creating a unique hash out of it is not new, but being able to store that in such a way that it's immutable and auditable on a blockchain, that's sort of where the innovation comes in. And I feel like people were talking about, was it, oh shoot, his name's slipping my mind right now, but smart contracts back in the 90s, in the cypherpunk mailing list and whatnot. I feel like, so the theories were there, right? And once the technology actually existed, it was like, holy shit, mind blown. What can we do? How can we apply this to our industry? Which is independent film, music videos, commercials. Where are the problems? And our first sort of instinct was, oh my God, distribution. the accounting systems, the collection account managers, the shadiness of P&A budgets of distributors, and all of the, not to knock it. I mean, it is what it is. It's worked pretty well for 100 years. And, there's been some amazing art and films that have come out of it. A lot of my favorite films are, like old and people probably haven't heard of them. But my point is that, there's always sort of been like, there's reasons that these giant films like, Lord of the Rings, for example, end up in lawsuits between studios and the filmmakers, because it's making $1 billion, but they're saying it lost money. So we thought, well, wow, let's go towards that end of the film life cycle. I mean, there's got to be benefits to having transparency in the, revenue collection of a film. Then we quickly realized that we needed the help of all of these incumbents, if you will, that were going to help us try and build this network. And so we were like, well, maybe let's not go to war with them quite yet. So we need to build a community first. We need to get some traction and some power, not power, but like, get a following and so that we can actually do something and have it mean something. And so we were like, every kid out of film school, I remember I went to film school. Mike did some film classes as well. And, all everyone would talk about is, how do I get financing for my movie? I have this great script. I have these amazing ideas. Everyone's got an amazing idea.
It's universal, man. It's universal for creators.
Yeah. And so we're like, well, people will beg, borrow, and steal to get financing for the films. Why don't we start there? And then we can use the, not use, but get the assistance of the incumbents that we already have relationships with to help us push this initiative to really make a difference, hopefully, discover some great talent, curate some great content, and then we can start moving to other ends of the film life cycle and use this technology. And there's plenty of people that are already going after that sector. And I'm sure someone's going to crack it. Yeah. But we've always had a vision of eventually going there, because, it's ripe for disruption. So anyway.
For sure, man. I'm really curious too about this idea of, you're creating this peer-to-peer submission feed. It's on the surface, so it sounds awesome, but coming from a project that is in a similar vein, I'll tell you what happens to us. We routinely come up with things like we have what we call a stool, and it's like a storytelling stool. All right. So we're creating the foundation, and the way to support that foundation of brand new characters and universe building, we have different legs of the stool that support it. Really simple. Sure. Some of it is a 30,000-foot view. We have something called the lore games, which is sort of our large milestones, like these big universal, immovable storylines that we can kind of work with. And then the second leg of the stool that we came up with was basically like a character generation system, right? And so people can submit, and we have we run it via different contests, and then as people win those contests, they end up taking part in basically the reward for the contest is actually winning a percentage of the pool from the primary sales that come from the sale of those characters, right? As those characters are integrated into the universe. Sounds simple, and I can say it in like 30 seconds, right? It's pretty like, oh yeah, it's really cool. When we go to write it, when we went originally to write the instructions and kind of the directions and like, okay, here's how it's going to work, it turned into like a 12 or 16 page paper. Like it was just like, because you start thinking about all the stuff like, well, what if this, and how do you balance that? And so for something with film where you have all of this inflow and then the support, what's that pipeline like? Because it's got to be. It sounds simple, but I know it's.
Yeah, no, I know exactly. There's a reason the term "too many cooks in the kitchen" exists, right? Mm-hmm. So the way we see it is, you go out and you create your story. Or depending on what the submission is. Right now, we have this is a good example. We have an award that's in partnership with Kevin Smith It's for screenplay stage, development stage submission. So all you need is a comedy script. I think it's 25 pages or less. And then we'll give you, I think, $40,000, and Kevin's production team is going to help you produce it. And the idea is that you'll have this launch pad to create a comedy series or a feature film out of at the end. You have this really cool piece of content that'll sell the idea to get financing or to a studio, depending on which direction you want to go. But the point I'm trying to make is, you get your script chosen by the community, you've earned that creative freedom, right? Like, we're not trying to tell you how to make your film. We're saying, wow, this person made it through the gauntlet of all these criticizers and the review. And at the end of the day, their creative was chosen. They deserve that freedom. They've earned it, right? The creative right to tell their story. So we're not in a decentralized way creating stories. So I just want to be clear about that. Although we do have a tool, total digress. Excuse me, I'm fighting a cold right now. We have a tool in the community that we call Creative Queries, where you can pay a bounty into a contract and ask the community to give you creative feedback on something. So you say, like, which scene is scarier of these two? It's the same scene with slight tweaks, and they can choose, or which movie poster makes you want to see the film more, or which trailer makes you want to see the film more. So we do have a tool to get that feedback, and it breaks it down by demographic and whatnot, so someone can quickly see which audiences are liking a certain thing better. But anyway, I'll shut up in a sec. But we totally understand, and this is one thing that Roman has been very clear about. It's like, you have these really cool ideas, and they have like crisp, hard edges, and they're like gritty and cool, and then you put it through a rock tumbler of like 1,000 people giving their input, and all of a sudden those edges are rounded out, and it's like it's kind of this
smooth marble,
lowest common denominator idea. Then that ruins it. But if enough people vote and say, this guy knows what he's doing, he's clearly got a cool vision, I like his approach, his references are rad, let's give this dude a shot, and then they can they earned that creative freedom. Anyway, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, the creative query function, it allows the creative to choose where they want to get, help, it enlists the community to help make a big decision. And there are points in the creative process where a creative may need help or might want input. And I've seen it many, many times in the editing room. Do we cut a scene like this, or we cut a scene like, do we have it be just music with no sound effects and no dialogue, or do we mix it in? I mean, there are a lot of moments I've been in that, but we let the creative drive that process. So I mean, what DCP is about is community. You select the creative, but once the creative has been selected, then we get behind you and what you want to do, and it's about support. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Really quick, we're gonna jump into chat, say hello to everybody. Dusty always likes me to say hello to him. So Dusty, what's up? How you doing, man?
Hey, Dusty.
Hey, Dusty.
Hey, G, how you doing? Let's go. Willie D, what's up? Welcome. Carrots, how you doing? Here we go. MK is here. What's up, MK? How you doing? KG has a really good question. He says, tell us more about the TalentNet blockchain. Did you guys create that?
Yeah, so me and the dev team created the TalentNet. Well, we stood on the shoulders of giants and forked some software to create it, but we made significant modifications to it to make it more viable for our use case. And there's a reason for that, which I can get into. But really, we wanted, and part of this is sort of, again, back to Roman's sort of really creative mind and grandiose sort of vision for this, is like, he wanted to create what he calls the virtual studio, where right now we've created the first app in that studio, which is the financing department. And, that's where we make decisions on where to allocate funds from the fund. And so, we rely on this decentralized community voting protocol to tell us which creative to put money behind. But we've also thought that this methodology we're using could be applied to casting, it could be applied to locations, it could be applied to, sales and distribution, even costume design, and many other cool creative functions that tend to have centralized decision-making processes behind them. So, to get back to your sort of like too many cooks in the kitchen problem, if we allow people to have the creative freedom and then have people vote on which creative idea or approach is the best, then maybe we can work together and help you solve that. But anyway, TalentNet is a blockchain. It's proof of stake. And so the reason that we really needed it rather than using a layer 2 or Ethereum is simply the gas fees. We wanted to make sure that our apps are 100% transparent and auditable and immutable. So that means every interaction within the application is recorded on the chain. But all of a sudden, you could start paying some serious gas fees. And it's all about the incentivization model that we're trying to achieve here. So we're trying to solve that, what I call the drinking from a fire hose problem, by incentivizing the world to give us opinions on this stuff, right? It's like, think about a Kickstarter in reverse, right? Like someone goes out to the world and says, hey, give me money for my project. Well, the opposite is like, hey, I'm going to pay you to tell me if you like this project or not. If you like it, then DCP is going to give me money for my project. So if someone has to pay a very fluctuating gas price to vote on one of these things, the incentive could be significantly destroyed, right? And we didn't want to be beholden to some other protocol and some other team that doesn't really give a crap about us. And so it was sort of a decision, like, do we not put everything on chain, and do we batch transactions in a centralized way and then publish them all at once at the end of the day, or every hour, or every 10 minutes? There's still this element of trust. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, what's the point of, if we're going to, do this, we need to make it like truly, decentralized, really, because if you have to trust that we're going to take all the voter data for a certain period of time and then publish it to the chain later, it almost defeats the purpose. I mean, if you're doing it every 5 seconds or whatever, but then the gas is really high. So we wanted to be in control of our own destiny, and that, after very much research, and at the time when we were developing this, I'm talking 2018, there wasn't a heck of a lot of options that made sense in the layer 2 world. So we were like, well, let's just make our own chain, and so that's what we did, and that's the TalentNet. And I see another thing, film credit nodes sound interesting. Yeah, absolutely. We'd love it if you come run a node. It's free to download the software, spin it up on your MacBook Pro. The computer needs to stay on, but you need at least one reel. We call them film reels. So a reel is 1,000 film credits. You need at least one reel to be a node op, but that's not a huge investment.
So what is the film credit node?
A film credit node is just a piece of software you download from our GitHub and spin it up on your server or on your laptop, and you contribute to validating transactions on the network. It helps decentralize the network, and you will earn for doing so in a proof of stake fashion, just like running a node on Ethereum now or any other proof of stake blockchain. That's
awesome. So you're really you guys really went after it in a kind of a 360 way. Like most projects or most companies don't say, yeah, let's just launch our own blockchain.
Well, I'm a little bit of a nerd, and Roman likes doing interesting, random, very experimental ideas. And we have a great team that we work with in Canada and around the world, and of course here in LA. And it just made sense. So we control our own destiny now. And so the last thing I'll say is we pay for all the gas within it, all the applications that we're gonna develop, and the ones that are live now. Any interaction within those applications, the foundation pays the gas for. So it bolsters that incentive mechanism that we're trying to create for that engagement and that peer review process.
And what we'd like, our vision here is, like Leo said, the goal is to create a virtual studio with other applications. And as Leo described, we have ideas that we're working on for other applications in the film and art space. But it's open source software, so anyone can come on and develop their own application where the film, ideally the film credit is the currency that drives everything. But you could go on to Decentralized Pictures, review some projects, earn some film credits, and then go on to the casting app and submit your reel to be considered on the casting app. And then or you could go take it somewhere else and create an NFT, some NFTs to help finance your project. And so it can be a one-stop shop where filmmakers and creatives can find a lot of services and resources.
No, it's really cool. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Let's see, we got Harry. What's up, Harry? How you doing? What's up? Natasha, how are you? Hey, no worries. You're never late. You're always on time. It's all good. KG says that's the way to do it. You control everything to help and run your project. So cool.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
What's funny about that, whole film credit and talent network is actually Francis had this idea. This is, something that was back in the 90s, pre-crypto, to create what he called the CRE, which was in essence a creative credit. And Mike touched on it quickly with zoetrope.com, but he wanted to create this thing called the virtual studio. And the technology didn't exist at the time to do it. But, like Mike alluded, he's a visionary. He just had this idea, like, what if people could earn merit points from other creatives in this community that he was like, had built over many years. And then they could cash him in, like, oh, I did this freebie movie for you. Or, I shot it, or I did the sound on it, or whatever it was. I need you now because I'm trying to pull off this film for no budget. And, come on, here, I'm cashing in these CRE credits. So, that was part of the, we really wanted to create that thing that he had envisioned 25 years earlier.
Well, and to kind of connect it really back to like the life on the ground, in the muck for filmmakers. There's always this thing for people in film, whether you're a writer or a gaffer or a director or an actor or whatever, there's all this sweat equity, or producers too, maybe producers especially, but there's this sweat equity, right? Like you put in all this work to get a project going, to put it together, get people like Leo, so you get your buddies to be a camera op and the DP and to act, and then you make this thing and you build up all this sweat equity, and there should be some way to cash that in, or to use that or pay that forward to the next project. And anybody who's worked in independent film knows what that is, and that would be great if we could make the film credit that and again, yeah, Francis had the idea. That's just how visionary he is in the 90s. But if the film credit could become that representation of sweat equity, creative sweat equity, where collaborators could come and polish up a script, and then take what they earned from doing that to, submitting on DCP. I mean, all of this, and it just kind of goes in a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, I definitely think you guys have hit on something that is, it absolutely lends itself to being the future of how we do things, right? And I think it's not just, and I think you guys know this, I think I'm preaching to the choir, but it's not just, it applies to film and storytelling, but not just this, right? Like if you look at what a lot of the DAOs are trying to do, it's a very similar type of process, right? But I think what makes what I find so fascinating with what you guys are doing is that you're able to create this flywheel system where people come in, they pay, the community gets reimbursed. It creates this flywheel for the development of a project. But the reason it works is because you're able to leverage the history of the company and the history of the people involved, right? Like that's such an interesting, it's a unique dynamic, but when you think about it, it's a very interesting mechanism, right? It's a unique way to leverage the history of a company, other than just what most companies do and just use it as a bio on their, we've been around 94 years or whatever. Like, it's like, great. Well, what are you doing with that? Like, you know.
Well, you know, that makes this is something I talked to some, you know, folks in film 3 and also in the film industry, and which is, might be a little bit in politics, but I think it's true, and it's, you know, it's kind of worth talking about. And the dirty little secret is that, you know, for a lot of, you know, people in the mainstream of filmmaking, you know, at successful studios and production companies and you know, actors and crew, and, you know, for them, you know, they're just concerned with making their film, right? They're busy getting the film made, whether it's at the independent film level or the studio level.
Right.
You know, they're waiting to see how the film's performing in box office. And, you know, I have friends that, you know, this goes for friends at Universal to, you know, indie filmmakers who are scrappy. And then, you know, and they are like, there's a certain amount of adoption of Web3 that still needs to happen, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, Web3 and film are still somewhat separate worlds. I mean, obviously we're all in the overlap, right? And we live in it. And so it makes a lot of sense to us. And then for a lot of Web3 people, you know, the real, like, the way that the film industry really works, and, you know, and the business of it really works, from, you know, from sales agencies to, you know, and distributors, festival circuit and all, and getting a film made and getting it financed, and doing financing deals. You know, they you know, aren't deeply, you know, entrenched in that and immersed in that, and I think it kind of took, you know, somebody who, you know, Leo and his development team, who are really, you know, experts in this and know, you know, Web3 intimately, and American Zoetrope with its background and its expertise in the film industry, to find just that particular use case that may work. We're all experimental, right? We don't know what will work. But I think that's the thing, is, can you find that just right use case that will work in the with Web3 folks, but will also make the film community sit up and take notice. And we obviously think that, you know, our talent and content curation protocol, through this incentivized collective decision making, we think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we're making a big bet on it, and we hope it will work. We believe in it, but we don't know, and it's, I think that's what it is. It's going to take that visionary that can find just that right use case to really kind of crack the code.
Well, I hope it works, because it's really kind of a bummer when, you know, we've been pitching this project for a while, and it's gotten a lot friggin' easier, let me tell you. Yeah, actually, some of the projects, or the companies rather, that decided to partner with us early on were ones you wouldn't think. Like Fox Searchlight was one, and Sony Pictures was another. Mm-hmm. Big companies that, you know, were like, yeah, this sounds cool. Well, you know, they were like, yeah, send us good projects when they come through the pipeline. We'd love to take a look and consider them. And we're like, fuck yeah, awesome. Sorry, I hope I'm allowed to swear. But some of them, the biggest criticism we got was, guys, hold on a sec. You know, we love what you're doing, but we tell people what to like. We don't ask them what they want to see. We tell them. People don't know what they like to like. You know, we tell them through advertising, and that's how it's been. It's how it's always going to be. And it's like, so I remember being like so bummed after like the first time that was said to us by like a big, you know, person in the industry. And I was like, fuck, I was just like set out to prove them wrong, right? Like, I was like, you know, a large diversified group should, in theory, have a better creative decision-making capability than a small, centralized, friggin' non-diverse group of like studio execs in a boardroom. And I know some people are really good at analyzing creative, but, you know, come on, like,
100%.
It's just about sample size and statistics, you know, like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, the thing is that it's, and I don't want to draw any like fire here, but it's a little hypocritical to have that opinion, right? Because what does the establishment in the film industry do, right? we were talking before this about comic books, right? What are comic books? Comic books were a cheap way to send around to a lot of people a lot of different stories, right? And audiences over literally decades. I mean, we were talking about Stan Lee and everything he did over this, 70s, 80s, 90s. Over decades, they picked out those storylines that resonated and that really like hit and really did well. And so then, Marvel and Disney picked those out and those characters, and they bet hundreds of millions of dollars on them. But they were selected by a large, broad, diversified group over a long period of time. And that's what happens with novels, Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. And so, and then what Hollywood does is they find those stories and then they just hang on to them and they like do them again and again and again. Yeah. And so it makes it difficult for original content to come through. But that's exactly what Hollywood does already. And they, so to say that they know they can pick out those stories is really a little, is not really accurate. And what DCP is really is a sort of a hyper sped up way of doing the comic book, right? You're incentivizing a bunch of people to look at stories very quickly and say which one they like, right? So you pay them to do it. So they do it, very fast, very quickly, and ensure they're being earnest and sincere. And so really audiences, rule and audiences are the ones that should be driving this. And I think that's what's great about blockchain and Web3 is that the democratizing effect of it.
100%. You guys hit on something major, I think, and that is something that we thought with adult fantasy as well, and that is, certainly it's the creative team that comes up with the concept, right? Like you take like a character like Venom, the Spider-Man adversary Venom, and certainly you had like the writer David Michelini and you had the artist Todd McFarlane, and they came up with a really cool story and it just hits, and it's like awesome. And as a kid, you're just like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's like black superhero costume and it's an alien and the guy's buff. It's like bodybuilder. So it's not like like Peter Parker skinny guy. It's the antithesis and it just kind of draws you in. However, it's not the creators. At the end of the day, it's the audience that makes that character what that character is, and so, we were talking about in the green room before, like, what I have behind me, which I call the world's most expensive green screen. And with all these comics and graphic novels, when Web3 came out and when I discovered Web3, I guess, you start looking at this stuff and you realize that what you were essentially looking at are tokens. It was our collective, like, buying of the comic book, in the hundreds of thousands or millions, that gave the signal in the form of capital, but gave the signal back to the editors and back to the publisher that said, oh, that's a hit.
Yeah.
Let's do more of that. And so all of a sudden there's more Venom books, and Venom is in a video game and he's got his own miniseries. Next thing you know, Sony's got a movie coming out. Like it takes a while to happen. But the reason that exists is because you had, like, it's a very slow feedback loop, right? And I think Web3 gives us the ability to do that faster. That feedback loop happens at a lightning speed, and it allows us to do what should have been done, or maybe, I don't know if it's fair to say that it should be done when I don't know how possible it would have been done before Web3, but you now have the ability for people, an audience, to come in and submit their ideas and to become not just a part of the creation process, but by allowing them to become a part of the creation process, you're creating an evangelist for that property or for that project, right? And so you're building the audience around the thing that will hopefully have life. And the bigger the feedback loop is, and the more people get to be involved in it, the more they're going to support it. Yep. Human beings have this thing where most people don't crap on things that they helped create, right? And so when you open the door and you allow thousands of people to come in and give their opinion and support something, they're naturally going to promote it and talk about it and share it because they helped create it. There's a piece of them in there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
They were part of the green lighting process, essentially, right? Like they were that team that was like, this is cool, I want to see it. And when it actually happens and comes to fruition, they're going to be excited that they, you know, put in their you know, opinion and helped it get to where it was. Absolutely. And the more that the creators involve the fans in that process, I think the more sort of, I don't know if you call it nostalgia or whatever that like participation emotion is. I think it'll only become stronger. Absolutely.
Yeah. I see we got a couple more questions here. So Rageous, what's up? He says, shoot, I was planning on being early. You're always early, man. Okay. Hari says, is the talent net open for people to build on?
Absolutely. We will only give support from our, you know, treasury and technical support for projects that are what we consider arts and culture focused. When we built TalentNet, we wanted it to be, you know, strictly an arts and culture focused blockchain. So, you know, art, music, film, and everything in between. So, you know, we're not encouraging people to go build DeFi apps on it necessarily, but absolutely, it's an open source, free, open protocol. You can build whatever you want. We can't stop you from doing that. You can actually write smart contracts in JavaScript and Python and Ligo as well. So yeah, feel free. I'd love to see if you have some cool apps. Send them. I'll check them out. I'd love to collaborate as well. I see there's another collaboration question down there somewhere.
Yep. KG is saying, are you guys looking at any collabs? Lots of Web3 story and art projects in the space. KG's looking out.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. We've been talking to a number of other Web3 projects in the film space, and we're gonna have. We just did the Film 3 Summit in LA here a few weeks ago with the NFT Film Squad and Bingeable and the Disruptors and many other companies that were involved. Beam is one of them. I'm sick right now, so my brain isn't working properly, but I know there's about a half a dozen others that I can't think of. Yeah, if you got some ideas, please reach out. You can hit us up in the Discord, or there's a contact form on our website. We always get back to people quickly.
That's awesome. So since you guys have started this, I can see one of the challenges that I would have with this personally is that there's so much opportunity. It's hard to not overextend yourself, right? Because you're like, well, we can do this with the art department. We can do this with costuming. We can do this with, you know, cinematography. Like you can do it with pretty much anything, right? It's a really interesting model to rev this up. So so I guess the question, I don't know, a couple questions. Like, well, the first one that I have is like, how do you remain focused on this one area right now? And then the second is like, since it's a new concept, like how has the adoption been, right? And are you and what's been the challenge with that? So I guess that's a bunch of stuff in there. But
it's a great question. Go ahead,
well, we're focusing on the financing aspect of filmmaking. We're on financing through Decentralized Pictures, through DCP, and you know, because we think that has a lot of appeal and people can relate to that, and it's, you know, presenting stories to the community and letting the community give their opinion. So we think it, you know, it facilitates a lot of engagement, and we're using this first app to build the community, and so that's our goal. Once we build that community and that following and get that adoption, you know, as that community grows, we plan to start adding additional apps, right? Now, if other people come in and put apps on top of Decentralized Pictures, on top of the TalentNet, great. Like, you know, and if they can integrate with DCP, so somebody can come to DCP, get financing, and then go to another app, and that can help them along in the film process, we're great with that. But what we, Leo and Roman and I and our team are focusing on right now is DCP and really using that to build the community. Yeah.
And the adoption early on, I mean, we launched publicly at the end of May at the Cannes Film Festival this year. it just happened to be like right around when Terra Luna kind of spiraled out. So it was right around the start of this crypto winter that I'd say we're in the middle of right now.
Yeah.
And there's a blizzard going on today, I'll tell you. But actually we've been growing exponentially month over month for the last 6 months since we launched. So we're quite happy, and we hope by this time next year to continue that trend and be able to look back and say, wow, we helped discover this filmmaker, we helped get this film made. Our success is going to really be determined by the success of the people that we support.
Yeah.
So maybe this time next year we can do this again, and you can ask us how successful we've been with the films. But actually we have one film in particular that we just did a completion funds for documentary financing award in partnership with the Gotham Film and Media Institute. The film that won is really just fantastic. I can't wait to share it with the world. It's going to definitely do a big festival, and we're just lucky to have been able to be a part of it.
Let's tell them about it. I don't think there's no embargo on talking about it.
It's called The 15th Parish. It's about sort of reggae and how it came into New York City in the 70s and 80s, and how it had a huge influence on hip hop culture in America.
Yeah.
And some of the artists that are in it are super cool. Some of the knowledge and history.
You're going into like Africa Bambaataa and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all it's super cool, and a lot of it actually. One of my favorite characters in it is this. Oh man, I can't remember her name. Sorry, but it's this woman who had this record repair shop in Jamaica that came to Queens, and she started this record shop, and she would bring all of these reggae records into, and it was like it was basically the only store in New York that you could get these reggae records at. So everyone sort of congregated there, and it started this movement, and it had a big impact on the culture for not only reggae but hip hop and other genres too, like drum and bass and whatnot. So super cool and proud to be a part of that. Some of the awards that we're looking at right now with this financing, another completion funds for narrative film in partnership with Steven Soderbergh. We're lucky enough to have, very grateful that he gave us a big donation to offer to the filmmakers in our community. And some of the films that have come in for that are really spectacular. And so it's going to be really tough to decide which one is going to be the winner, or which few are going to be the winners for those. So we're just super excited, and it's going to try and stay as focused as we can to sort of go back to your question on doing exactly what we're trying to do right now really, really well. And if we can do that really well and it can be successful, then we can once it is successful, start to expand to other departments of our virtual studio.
We're focusing on financing because we felt like that there would be a good reception for that. As we were talking about before, filmmakers are all dying for funds. We're giving away money, so that's something that for people to remember is that we are, and we're not financing films with crypto. We are financing with fiat. So the documentary finishing funds is $50,000 USD. We have 3 awards partnership with Steven Soderbergh that are $100,000 USD each. For finishing funds for narrative projects. So our audience. If you're a filmmaker and you're looking for financing, we're giving out money, and the community decides. So come and make your pitch.
That's awesome, man. I think I can see this being very big. I can, and I think the interesting thing too is I believe that we're early enough to where one of the keys of success is just being here. And what I mean by that is sticking through like times like this with a bear market or crypto blizzard or whatever you want to call it. It's a blessing and a curse, right? Like the blessing is like if you're here 3 months, you're an OG. You know what I mean? But that's also the curse because people just come in and get wiped, or they just make their money and move on, or whatever it is. And just by being constant and consistent and staying there and really, really making that effort. I know you guys are like as a community, especially us as storytellers and being in the space with so tied to the creative side, I think we have that responsibility to be like almost be that I don't want to say a light because that sounds cheesy as hell, but just be like, hey, we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're going to be here, and use that as a signpost for other creatives to come in and say, hey, come in, the water's okay, you can make it. Like it's not as scary as it seems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think as more and more people come into that, especially around storytelling, I think, again, I'm biased, but I think storytelling projects are the cornerstone of the whole Web3 movement. Like we're the ones that are going to be here. You know what I mean? All the projects that came before, all the PFP things, even the most successful ones, what are they trying to do right now? They're trying to bolt on stories to their PFP projects.
Well, what's funny about what you say there is like, you couldn't be more right. Like this technology is great. I'm a true believer. I've been in it for a long time, but storytelling and what makes a good story is not improved by this technology. So at the end of the day, you got to remember that. Like, if you have a bad movie, blockchain or PFPs or NFTs is not going to help it be a good movie. So you're exactly correct. I mean, focus on the story, focus on the creative, analysis, like we're trying to do, and the technology is just in the background to facilitate it and make it efficient and incentivize the folks to participate in it. But what makes a good story hasn't changed with the tech.
That's awesome. With that, guys, like this has been fantastic. What a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
Where can we point people to? If people are just hearing about DCP, where can they jump in?
Go and sign up at our app. You can create an account for free. You can start reviewing for free. You can actually submit, not for free, but with sweat equity. You don't actually have to buy anything. You can just come start reviewing people's projects and earn enough of a balance to submit your own idea. If you want to be lazy and don't want to do that, you can buy your way into a submission fee as well. But yeah, go to the sites streaming across the bottom here, decentralized.pictures. You can read about the project there. If you go to app.decentralized.pictures, you can create an account at the app and start checking out some of the cool stuff that's been submitted. We'd love to see you. From both of those, you can link to our Discord. There's tons of people in there that'll give you support and help. If you want to set up a node, go to the infrastructure channel. If you want to get some help submitting a project, there's a submission concierge channel, and all the channels in between. We have an ambassador program. We have what's called a minor concierge. So if you get your node set up and you need a little help getting your first reel, we can help you with that. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you all in the community. Thanks so much for listening to our spiel.
Absolutely. Really quick, KG says, great stuff, guys. Looking forward to learning more and getting involved. And MK says, going to go learn more. Thanks for giving your time tonight, and go blue.
Go blue.
Awesome.
Got a Michigan fan. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Everybody at home, thank you so much for showing up. As always, please go check out Decentralized Pictures. They're phenomenal. Decentralized.pictures. You can learn more there. And of course, we will see you next time on Adult Fantasy. Well, I should say Evening Alpha. It's late. And please subscribe, like, comment, help us out, get the word out. And yeah, we will see you guys next time on Evening Alpha. Thank you guys so much. And with that, take care. God bless. Be good to each other. And we will